Welcome to this explainer. Today we're going to completely rethink everything you thought you knew about one of history's most notoriously misunderstood artists, Vincent van Gogh. We're setting out to uncover the meticulous calculations, the intense study, and the incredibly deep compassion that actually drove his work. For over a century, pop culture has basically sold us this tortured madman trope, right? This myth of an artist who just painted a canvas in some frenzy of chaotic emotion. But here's the thing. Was his greatest work actually the product of madness, or was it meticulous study? As we'll see as we go through this explainer, the reality of his creative process is just so much more fascinating than the myth. We're going to embark on a journey separating that myth from the methodical, brilliant reality of his art.
All right, Section 1, the mind behind the canvas. To really get the art, we first have to understand the artist's deeply empathetic soul. So let's take a look at his early life and inner thoughts before we even touch those iconic paintings. Now, Vincent was an incredibly prolific writer. We actually have 903 surviving letters, and get this, it's estimated he wrote over 2,000 in his lifetime. The vast majority of these were to his brother and closest confidant, Theo. So Vincent wasn't just a painter, he was a profound thinker. He had this passionate need to share his ideas, his process, and his feelings. He literally documented his own intellectual and emotional evolution for us. And he perfectly captured his profound, aching longing for human connection in his writing. He wrote, "Someone may have a great fire in his soul, yet no one ever comes to warm himself at it, and the passers-by see but a little smoke coming out the chimney and continue on their way." He actually wrote this while working as an evangelist missionary among destitute miners in the Borinage district of Belgium. It really reflects his deep desire to comfort those who suffered. You can actually see this longing brilliantly illustrated in early sketches like this one, Pollard Birches from 1884. Notice those stunted trees? They form a literal barrier, separating us, the viewer, from those dark peasant figures in the distance. It visually represents what's been called his cosmic loneliness during those pastoral days. He desperately wanted to live among the poor, to endure what they endured, and to show real solidarity with them. And that empathetic foundation is absolutely crucial to everything he paints later on.
Moving on to Section 2, the Paris color transformation. Let's fast forward a bit to a pivotal chronological moment, March 1886, his arrival in Paris. This is where his entire artistic trajectory shifts. So his early Dutch period featured a very somber, muted palette. Think lots of dark earth tones inspired by painters of peasant subjects like Jean-François Millet. But in Paris, boom! He's suddenly exposed to the Impressionists. He actually went to the 8th Impressionist exhibit. Inspired by the work of artists like Claude Monet, Van Gogh completely abandoned those dark earth tones and rapidly adopted a rich, intense, vibrant color range. But unlike the Impressionists who just wanted to capture transient light, Vincent used these new colors directly as a vehicle for intense emotional expression. He totally immersed himself in the avant-garde community. We're talking meeting heavyweights like Paul Gauguin, Georges Seurat, Émile Bernard, and Henri de Toulouse-Lautrec. He absorbed Seurat's pointillism, painting in those tiny, small dots of color, and Gauguin's symbolism. But he didn't just copy them. No, he synthesized these drastically different influences into his own completely unique proto-expressionist style. And that's where he develops this famous technique utilizing a heavy impasto. That means applying the paint so thickly that it physically stands out from the surface in these idiosyncratic, regular, short brush strokes. He was actively trying to harmonize brutal extremes of color. And this wasn't accidental at all. It was a highly deliberate, very physical way of applying paint to alter the reality of things, to achieve a profound emotional end. He literally wanted to touch people with his art. Which brings us to Section 3, Decoding Starry Night. Now we arrive at the most famous chapter. Let's shift over to his time in the asylum at Saint-Rémy-de-Provence and systematically deconstruct the myths surrounding his ultimate masterpiece.
People look at the swirling sky in Starry Night and just assume, oh, it's the hallucination of a fragile mind. But look at this. Vincent was actually infatuated with astronomy. He regularly read a popular 19th century magazine called L'Astronomie. So those iconic spirals engulfing the painting, they were deliberate imitations of scientific reproductions of nebulae. It was a calculated study of one of his primary intellectual interests directly mapped onto his canvas.
In fact, we can break the painting down into 5 highly calculated core elements. First, it starts with a spiral, drawn straight from science. Second, that flows into the sky, moving almost like a river to explore his thoughts on life after death. Third, you have the intensely luminous moon and stars.
Fourth, below all that sits the village, which, fun fact, he couldn't actually see from his window, but added from his imagination to anchor the composition. And finally, number 5, tying the whole shebang together, is the cypress tree in the foreground.
And if you still doubt his meticulous nature, consider this. Astrophysicists have actually confirmed that the moon and stars depicted in Van Gogh's sky perfectly match published astronomical observations from Saint-Rémy de Provence on May 25, 1889. The brightest star in the painting? That's the star Capella, which was particularly luminous that specific night. I mean, that is breathtaking precision. It is absolutely not random chaos.
Then there's the cypress tree, rising up like a dark flame right in the foreground. Notice how it completely connects the bottom of the canvas to the top? Traditionally, the cypress is a symbol of death. And for Vincent, who is deeply preoccupied with religion and the afterlife, this tree acts as a critical spiritual bridge connecting the earthly ground to that cosmic spiritual sky. Every single element is doing a specific job. Okay, section 4, the final 70 days. After leaving the asylum, he moves to the village of Auvers-sur-Oise in 1890, looking for a place of rural calm. And this opens up the frantic final chapter of his life. The pace he worked at here is honestly almost unbelievable. He completed 74 paintings in just 70 days, right before his tragic death on July 29th. That is more than a painting a day. It really showcases this frenetic, almost desperate need to capture the world, driven by a surge of creative energy that's practically unmatched in all of art history. During this time, he became super close with Dr. Paul Gachet. He was a physician, a phrenologist, and an art collector who basically became a spiritual advisor to Vincent. Dr. Gachet urged him to keep painting, telling him, through art, you will find ways of unburdening yourself. And Vincent really took this to heart, pouring literally every ounce of his remaining energy into his canvases. And it's right here that he perfects his vision of modern portraiture. Vincent believed a modern portrait shouldn't just be some photographic likeness. Instead, it should push formal boundaries, use strong color contrasts, and expose the very soul of the sitter. His famous portrait of Dr. Gachet perfectly embodies this, with his melancholic expression and a body that seems to just lean with woefulness. It's raw, it's emotionally immediate, and it's universally relatable. So this leaves us with a really crucial question I want you to take away from this explainer today. If a supposed madman could capture the cosmos with such scientific precision and document human suffering with such profound, deliberate compassion, well, what does that tell us about the true nature of his genius? Vincent van Gogh wasn't just some vessel for chaotic emotion. He was a deeply feeling, highly methodical creator who used intense study and brilliant calculation to share his soul with the world. I really hope this changes how you look at his art the next time you see it.